In this video I'm going to do a full tour of the Joolca range of products, and this is a really interesting set of products from a company who are really redefining, I think, what you can expect from camping accessories in terms of attention to detail and build quality and design. Hopefully I'm going to answer all of the questions you'll have on this product, but if not, do pop a comment down below and I will reply and answer those questions there. The Joolca products themselves are really impressive, but where it gets really interesting is just how good they are when they're used together. And I think it does make sense to think of these products as a complementary set of products that work together. At the core of the range of products is the Joolca HOTTAP, which is a gas water boiler, and it's actually much simpler than it looks. It's basically a simple boiler with 3 connections underneath, one for the gas, one for the cold water inlet, and one for the hot water out. It does have a little battery compartment which it uses to power its own screen and for the gas ignition. The Joolca HOTTAP is sold in one of 3 configurations, and the first is the Essentials, which is basically just the HOTTAP unit itself, the simple stand and the shower hose. You will need to use this version with your own pressurized water supply, so the HOTTAP itself won't work unless it's fed pressurized cold water. So if you've got your own pressurized water, you can use this system and off you go. The next one up in the range is the Outing, and this comes with a 12-volt pump, and that lets you draw from a standing water source. So you can basically chuck the end of the hose with a little filter on it into a bucket or a river, and it will prime itself and draw water and feed the HOTTAP. The third in the range is the Nomad, and this is literally everything. It even amusingly includes the kitchen sink. Now this isn't to be underestimated, because this big blue tub is actually just the right size to store everything, all the hoses and the attachments and the HOTTAP itself inside, and that just means the entire system's super easy to grab. It's got 2 easy to grab handles on the edges, and you can just chuck it in your car and you know you've got everything. And that's the version I've got here. Now this version also includes an upgraded stand, which is a much chunkier, beefier thing, as well as a Y splitter and a tap attachment, so that you can actually have a tap plumbed into the kitchen sink whilst you've still got your shower plumbed into your shower tent. Now it won't power both of these open at the same time, but you can leave it all plumbed in, but you can just turn on either one of these without doing any reconnection of the hoses. Joolca did send me all of this stuff for free and I can keep it, but there's an interesting backstory to this. I actually approached them, not the other way around. I was actually just about to buy all of this stuff because I knew that it was something I wanted to add to our Overlander camping off-grid setup, and I thought I'd just be a little bit cheeky and pull the YouTuber card and say, you know, I'll be happy to do a review on this if you can send it, and amazingly they obliged, so I'm very grateful for that. But this video is still an honest review and detailed walkthrough of all of this kit. But from all of the research I'd done into these products, I'd kind of known that they are very, very good, and now I've got them, they've absolutely lived up to that expectation. If you're new to this channel, I'm a software developer and workflow enthusiast, and I really enjoy optimizing all areas of day-to-day life, from work through to recreation and holidays, and our camping format is no exception to that. So over the last couple of years, I've built this Overlander off-grid kind of setup for our family camping, and it's been absolutely brilliant. What I did this summer holidays actually was just take all the Mondays off, so I had three-day weekends throughout the holidays, and we would just shoot off to a campsite in Cornwall and really just have a lovely 1 or 2 night break each week throughout the summer period. And this whole setup just made this really an amazing adventure rig, and we were getting to the beach and all that. It was just brilliant. It worked really, really well. Many thanks to all of the members of this channel as well. Your support means a huge amount, and if you want to support this channel, do consider buying some of these funky t-shirts with artwork by my dad. So the functionality of this thing is absolutely brilliant. Once it's all plugged in, you've got your gas supply to the HOTTAP boiler itself, you've got pressurized water from the 12-volt pump, and then you've got your outlets with the taps, and they've all got their own switches on the ends, and you can just leave this on, and it doesn't do anything until you open one of the taps, and of course as soon as that pressure drops, then everything kicks in. So the 12-volt pump will automatically kick in and start providing more water, and the boiler will recognize this and fire itself up, and then the ignition for the gas comes from the batteries in the unit. And of course, once the boiler is burning, that then heats the water, and you then control your flow and temperature with the big dials on the front of the boiler, and everything just takes care of itself. The pump will regulate its pressure and flow according to that, and the gas boiler will vary your temperature accordingly. And then when you shut it off, it just turns off, and you don't have to do anything. As long as that 12-volt pump has got power, it can just come on and go off by itself, and it will vary its flow rate as it needs to as well. It's actually, speaking of that pump, it's very quiet as well. So just a really nice, well thought out system with no faffiness. And one of these things I always kind of like to explore when I'm looking at these workflows is how much of a faff is it to set up. Now, obviously a hot tap shower system is going to have a fair amount of faffiness associated with it. There's going to be hoses and connections. And that is of course true. We've got lots of hoses and the gas connection and all of that. But the Joolca products all have quick release connectors, even with the gas inlet into the boiler itself. So it's actually super simple. And when I first saw all these hoses, I was like, oh God, this is really complicated, but it isn't. It's easy to overthink it. It's quite simple. All the blue hoses are your cold ones and the red ones are the hot ones. So you just kind of visualize where the water's coming from, going into the boiler, and then where it's going to, and you just connect it all up basically. Just kind of follow the color scheme and connect the right colors, and that's it. You haven't got to kind of think any more than that. Now, the really fascinating part of this suite of products is the shower base that I've got here. Now, obviously, when you're camping, water is the precious resource that's obviously always a pain, either to carry it around or to refill your containers. So I thought if we're going to have the shower thing, it's got to do something clever like recycle the water. And Joolca have this completely nailed with the shower base. So we're looking at kind of the three main products here in the range. So we've got the HOTTAP Boiler Nomad kit that I've got here inside the sink with all the hoses. That's all of the boiler stuff. Then we've got the Ensuite tent. Now this is the triple, which means it's got 3 compartments inside, and we'll look more at that in a second. And then we've got this shower base. So these 3 bags pack up into the car and they're nice and self-contained. Now the shower base is obviously a pretty big heavy thing, but what it enables is just remarkable. You can have basically an infinite hot shower on your campsite, and it collects your water and recycles it. Now, I was warned that there is the potential, because obviously the water's kind of getting hotter and hotter as it recycles. The boiler will cut out when the inlet temperature gets to a certain temperature. Now, I didn't experience that in the showers I was using. Obviously, you don't just want to burn through all your gas, so you're not going to spend hours in there anyway. So I don't know how likely it is to reach that. I think it depends on the starting temperature of your cold water as well, but it wasn't an issue for me, and it just worked exactly as described. It just catches the water and recycles it. So to start this off, all you need to do is just kind of pour a bucket of water into the shower base, and you've got this little filter, of course, which connects on the inside of the shower base there as well. Connect that shower base as the inlet for the boiler, and then just turn on the shower, and it just works. It starts drawing from that water, heats it up, and then gives it back to you through the shower head. Let's talk a little bit about the Ensuite tents. Now, the Joolca range includes 3 of these. They've got the single, the double, or the triple. Now, for me, I went with the triple, and we've also got the awning attachment for it. So for us, with the Overlander setup with the roof tents, now you're using roof tents for sleeping, you're sort of naturally left wondering what you're going to do in terms of a day shelter. Like if it's raining in the day, where are you going to go? Obviously, you can't all pile into the roof tent, so you need some sort of day shelter for that unpleasant weather, and also things like getting changed. Of course, you can't really stand up in a roof tent, so actually just sort of changing your clothes is a workflow that isn't really accommodated with the roof tent. So having that format for the day shelter is quite an important part of overlanding with roof tents. And prior to the Joolca tents, I actually had this big hexagonal thing with the pop-out sides, and it was great, it's a really solid tent. But actually to use it for something like changing, if you've got the mesh exposed, you have to go around the entire tent, pulling the flaps down on all of the sides, and then the guy ropes come through the center, so you kind of got to disconnect those and pull it through. Just a major kind of workflow problem with using that day shelter for one of the most important roles that it has, which is as a changing room. This is what fascinates me so much about the Joolca Ensuite Triple, because it has essentially 3 compartments, one for the toilet, one for the shower, and then this kind of double-sized one for changing. And it's just got nice zippered doorways on both sides that you can go in and very quickly close that, and you've got a nice changing space. Delightful, absolutely delightful shower. And on top of that, you've got this huge awning, which is the day shelter, and that goes right down to the side. So you've got obviously the tent as the back wall, and then 2 sides and the roof overhanging. And that's just more than enough for those kind of day shelter situations where you might want to protect from a shower while you're at camp. If it's really horrendous weather, I think we'd probably just jump in the car and go off to the pub or something like that. So this whole Joolca approach just works so fantastically well with a roof tent setup. So what's fascinating about about the Joolca products is the little attention to details and this combination of incredible build quality and incredible design. And this is really why I wanted to get these products in the first place. This isn't sort of something I'm being told to say. I knew I wanted these because I'd figured this out about these products first. And it's absolutely unbelievable. So little things like the guy ropes having their own little velcroed pouches that you can stow them away in, and then things like places to hang your towels or store your phone, and little storage pouches and connections and hooks and everything. So I used to use this wildlife hide as our toilet tent, and one of the main issues with that was the sort of lack of anywhere to hang lights and stuff inside, and there's no ventilation, and it was just a very horrible tent. The Joolca tent just completely flips this on its head and has amazing features for everything. Hooks that you can hang lights on everywhere, but also the fabric is foil on the inside, which obviously has sort of thermal advantage properties to it, but it makes it very bright inside. And then you've got vents that are above kind of visibility height that you can keep open for more light and ventilation. And all that light just comes in and bounces around. And the experience of using these tents inside is absolutely fantastic, just night and day, for lack of a better phrase, than the blackout hide that I was using before. Well, I think one of the best examples of these small attention to details that they've really gone to town with here is the little opening in the shower cubicle that lets somebody pass you something into the shower cubicle while you're in there. So you can put your arm out and say, can you pass the soap? And your other half can pass you the soap if you've forgotten it or something like that. There's just little examples like this throughout the whole thing in terms of little hooks and rails and straps and things that you can use to store things and hang things on. Just makes it such a functional utilitarian thing. So in terms of the actual tent assembly as well, it's one of these kind of fast pitch things that sort of opens a bit like an umbrella. So you pop it all out from the top and then you extend the sides and that's it, up it goes. And then you can just peg it down. There's a couple of pegs that go down and then 2 rods to give it some stability at the side, which are also great for hanging towels on to dry in the sun. Actually just super easy to pop up, and it goes away really easily as well. And it easily fits in the storage bag, which is of course one of these, normal experiences. Things are very difficult to get back in the storage bag sometimes. And one of the nicest, again, amazing examples of this extra attention to detail where they've just gone above and beyond is that this storage bag for the Ensuite has an expansion zip that you can open up if you've got the awning, so that you can store that in there as well. The floor of this tent is worth a mention as well because it has a drainage section around each of the central panels as the floor. Now, obviously, as a day shelter, I tend to think that no ground sheet is the better version for a tent like this. But obviously, your changing area and the 2 cubicles have these ground sheets, but they have this draining mesh at the side. And of course, the area under the awning doesn't have a ground sheet. So actually, I think that's perfect. So you have your kind of more enclosed, smaller spaces where you do want to go and you're having a shower and you don't want to be in the mud, obviously. That works really well. And then to drain the water, you just pull up the little tab that they've added to the center of the floor, and the water will run to the side and go out of the drain holes. Another workflow that could so easily have been overlooked is what to do with the toilet roll. So in any kind of camping toilet setup, where you put the toilet roll is obviously always a major concern. This was one of the first things that came up when I was using the wildlife hide. You don't want to put your loo roll on the wet grass for obvious reasons, but in the Joolca tent, there's actually a proper toilet roll dispenser that you can put the toilet roll in, and it's got a little spindle for it and everything. It's just absolutely fantastic to see this attention to detail. And then there's just this huge number of ventilation options. So you can open for just to mesh, or you can close for privacy. And there are ones right at the top that you can have open all the time. And then there's a bigger panel on the shower cubicle, which you can either have open or closed as well. And the main doors on each side of the changing room space can either be fully open, set to mesh, or fully closed. And very interesting, the implication of having the doors on both sides, because it means you can position this next to something like a caravan or a teardrop trailer. A lot of people use these in that situation, so you can actually sort of walk out of your vehicle into the tent and then out into the wilderness. So it's sort of a nice changing space where you're kind of preparing to go in and out of your caravan or your camper. Now, obviously, the other kind of main concern you'd have using a tent and a camping shower setup is the ground. I know we've got the ground sheet, but there is that mesh, and if you were just standing on the bottom of the tent there, it would perhaps start to feel pretty unpleasant and squishy as it turns to mud basically underneath the tent. Well, having the shower base obviously solves that problem, and you get this completely flat bamboo slatted surface that you stand on. It just feels like you're in some kind of spa or something. It's, considering you could be pitched in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere and have this just from 3 small bags that come out the back of the car. Just an incredible ratio of portability to comfort here. I think what's surprising about this range of products is just how good they are and how well executed the entire design and build of these things is, considering on the face of it, it appears to be quite a niche product. But I think actually I'm perhaps sort of underestimating the size of the market here. They are a global brand. They've got warehouses in different countries and they will ship fast to you. So obviously everyone's going to have their own ideas as to sort of how many creature comforts they want to take with them when they go camping. You know, what actually is getting away from it all? Is this too much? You know, obviously a lot of people might look at this setup and think, okay, we've just got so much luxury here, the big Land Rover with the comfortable roof tents and now a hot shower. So like, why are we doing all of that? We could just go to a hotel or a B&B. But of course, the reality is having all of this means we can go even further into the wilderness and escape even further. So whereas we might go to a normal campsite for the amenities, we now don't even have to do that. We can look at these amazing range of off-grid campsites that are popping up all over the place. You kind of have the whole place to yourself and just a really nice way of camping. But you've got to get these basics in terms of self-sufficiency sorted, and this I think is how it's done. Absolutely amazed by these products. If you've enjoyed this video, watch one of my roof tent videos next. I'll link to that here and I'll see you there.
Like an actual shower. Feeling it. Oh, that is hot.